You are listening to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Beth.
I'm Natalie.
And I'm Harriet.
Rewrite the Rules podcast releases a new episode every Monday, and we're all about helping you achieve a happier and healthier relationship with food and your body.
We're real people with real life experiences, so you can expect us to be keeping it raw and real in each and every episode.
Don't forget to follow and subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use, and share the love with a friend that you think will love this podcast.
Now, let's get on to the episode.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. I am here today with a very special guest, Food Freedom with Bekka. Welcome, Bekka. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I love you so much. I appreciate you time of your day to come on here, and I know that our listeners are going to absolutely adore you.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
It is. I'm so excited to speak to you. I feel like we're already very good friends, but it's just nice being able to get on a call and chat one-to-one like this.
Weird though, because I've followed you for ages, and then we talk on here and it's just I actually know you, but I don't know you. Social media is weird.
It is crazy like that. And yes, I've been also following you for a while, and sort of when we decided to start inviting guests onto the Rewrite the Rules podcast, it's a very nervous process to be like, oh my God, who do we want to bring on? Who's going to be fit for our listeners and things like that? But your name was literally at the top of my list from day one. And not just because we've got very similar journeys, but I feel like obviously your ethos and your sort of approach to coaching mirrors my own. So I just knew that you would be the perfect guest. So like myself, you began your journey to balance within the year of 2020.
I did.
For those who don't know your starting point or haven't heard of you before, don't follow you, would you mind just taking us back firstly to previous Bekka, when you didn't have such a good relationship with food and a good relationship with exercise and things like that? Of course, please share whatever you are comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to just hear a bit more about your experience, and I feel like our listeners would absolutely love to hear that too.
Okay, so it kind of jumps back and forwards a little bit, so you just have to bear with me a little bit. So at school, I was never really into sport or exercise, anything like that. I never counted calories. I didn't care what I looked like, which was great. And then obviously left school and started working, got into a relationship, and again I still didn't care. We used to go to late night trips to Tesco's, buy loads of chocolate and crisps and sit in bed and eat them, and they'd be gone in seconds, and I didn't feel guilty once. I then went through a traumatic experience in 2017, and I'm not going to go into that one, but basically it was around Easter time, and I ended up binging on Easter eggs quite a lot because I was really depressed. And then fast forward 6 months, I realized I was in a really deep hole with it. Managed to find the gym, which was great, got me moving. I did some classes, found out that I liked it. That then led to a really negative spiral of me doing 2 classes a day and just going crazy with exercise. At that point, food wasn't an issue. I was still eating normally, but I was just training an insane amount. Managed to lose some weight. Then it stopped for a bit, and I realized that it wasn't moving because I wasn't tracking my food. So I started tracking my food, and then that just was a downhill snowball effect. It just built up and built up. I ended up moving into a house share, which was worse for me because at home, at least my mum was cooking for me and making sure I was eating everything. I moved into this house share, and I was on 1,200 calories, if that, just eating the bare minimum. If I had a chocolate chip cookie, I would feel so guilty for having it because I think it would undo everything. So I'd go and do another gym class. And then it got really bad, but it wasn't until 2020 when my relationship with food got really bad. I basically kept getting really bad pain every time I ate, and went to the doctors about it. I had to ring A&E in the middle of the night because I couldn't breathe because my back and side hurt so much. And it basically turned out that I had gallstones and my gallbladder needed removing. But obviously not obviously, you might not know. So when you have gallstones, it's caused by fatty foods. And if you eat anything fatty, your body just can't digest it. So I was then terrified of every food I ate because I thought it was going to cause these horrible episodes. And then in 2020, in the February, I had surgery, which was great because in my mind I was having surgery, which meant I wasn't going to eat for a good month because I've had surgery and I'm going to have lost weight because they've taken an organ out of me, and it's all of this stuff. But it just got worse, because then I was like, well, I'm not exercising. And like 3 days after my surgery, I rang my brother in tears and was like, I want to go for a walk and I want to go out. And he was like, you've just had like surgery. You're not going to go for a walk 3 days later. And I was like, but I need to. And it just wasn't great. And then because of that, I then decided to do a nutrition course to educate myself on food a bit more. And that was like my saving grace, because it just taught me so much that I didn't understand about food, and it allowed me to see food as all of the good things and the nutrients there is, rather than just the calories. And then, long story short, I did the course and did it for myself, but then learned so many things in it that I wanted to become a coach myself and help other people realize that food is not scary.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't actually know all the details of that. I've read like previous posts before, but it's just such a different story when I just hear you say it like this. So just on reflection, what do you think was like your exact enough is enough moment? Because I feel like when I talk to people, they can pinpoint their exact sort of hour of the day, what was their rock bottom. So what do you feel like that was for you?
It was my 6-month anniversary with my current boyfriend, and he took me out for a meal. I was the smallest I've ever been, and I had like this red dress on that like crossed over, and you could see part of my tummy. And there's a picture that he took of me with my food in front of me, and I look back on it now and I'm so pale. My hair is all like dry and like not nourished. And I remember he took that picture and I hated it because I thought I looked fat. And I look at it now and I'm like, there is literally nothing on me. And that evening, I didn't enjoy my meal at all. He wanted to go out for drinks afterwards, and I just cried because I didn't want to have more calories. And yeah, that was my, okay, this isn't quite right. I need to do something.
It's so sad to listen to, but I also know that that's the reality of most of us. We all have the sort of dinner dates that we can't have fun at. We all look back at the pictures where we thought we were one size, and actually in reality we were completely different, and just at that stage could not see.
You become so blind, don't you? Like, it's crazy looking back on pictures, thinking, how can you ever think that you look fat?
Yeah, obviously, like, we talk a lot about like food freedom on this podcast, but we know that food freedom isn't something you just go to sleep one day and then wake up with the next day. It's not like black and white. What is food freedom for one person isn't food freedom for another person. And obviously we know it takes time, it takes persistence, a lot of discomfort, like you did with your nutrition course, re-educating yourself, rewrite all the things that you thought you knew. But other than going on this nutrition course, what are the steps? What were like the first few steps for you to sort of start working towards balance?
So I don't necessarily think I did things in the right way to begin with, but everyone starts somewhere, and it got me here. But basically, we were talking about this earlier. So I found Abby GFit on Instagram, and she was talking all about what she was going through. And I was like, okay, that sounds quite familiar. Like, maybe there is something going on. So I decided to sign up with just an online coach that I found. Was the worst thing I could have done. Like, I told her about all my issues, and bless her, she wanted to try, but her attitude was just very much like, she upped my calories by 200 every week to try and help me like grow my glutes. And it just, the whole focus was on growing my bum rather than my relationship. So I stopped that, then signed up with a different coach who was a lot better at like the mental side of things. It still wasn't fixing the issue, but it did help me a little bit. Like, I had some more accountability with how many calories I was having and that kind of thing. And she sort of monitored me a bit more. Like, other than having coaches, it has just been like talking to people and making friends with people that have been through it. Like, me and Abby are such good friends now. And I used to message her like, oh my God, I feel awful, because as much as I could talk to my boyfriend about it, he didn't understand. Like, he could sit and say, oh, it's okay, like, what can we do? But he did not know how I was feeling. And to him, he was like, why is she getting upset over a chocolate bar?
Yeah, absolutely. I can completely relate to that. My fiance, has got an amazing relationship with food. He's never to think twice about what he eats, and that is amazing. But as supportive as they try and be, they can't really understand what you're going through.
Right.
Are you also attempting to be like secretive and like hiding what was going on from him as well?
Yeah, like I remember I spoke about it in my podcast last week, actually. One Christmas, it was the 2020 Christmas, I was obsessed with my Fitbit, and I was really stressed because of COVID. We couldn't go to the gyms, everything was shut. I'd ate loads at my mum's for Christmas Day, gone home, and I was like secretly in the bedroom doing steps, trying to get my steps up because I felt I had to. And like I'd suddenly hear him coming up the stairs, and I'd just stop and sit on the bed and be like, da, 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 da. And then as soon as he was gone, I'd be standing and walking again and things. And it's so stupid when I look back at it now. But I thought that walking on the spot for like 10 minutes would undo everything I'd eaten.
Absolutely. And I think we also think, oh, not hitting whatever step goal we're aiming for is also going to ruin all of our progress. I was literally the same. I'd be like hoovering for the sake of hoovering.
Yeah.
Just to get my
Cleaning gets your steps up.
and like secretly doing like sit-ups in my room. So yeah, I completely get that. And it's so difficult for them to support you if you're not honest about it. But then if we feel so much guilt and shame and all these feelings, it's hard enough to deal with yourself. Then be honest with other people.
It just makes you feel stupid, doesn't it? Because you think like, if they can be normal with food, then why can't I? Like there's clearly something wrong with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember literally getting to the age of like 20 and still feeling like I was literally the only person on the planet experiencing this, which is why it's so amazing that we sort of took to social media and actually started sharing our journey to not just help other people, but to help ourselves as well.
Talking of like, genuinely, people take, like my family take the mick out of me for how much I talk on my stories on Instagram and stuff. And I'm like, but it helps me because it clears my head of whatever thoughts I've got going on. And by doing that, other people are listening, and then they might be feeling the same or thinking the same. And it, like, I'll just say something and someone will message me like, oh, that really helped me. And I'll be like, oh, wasn't intending to, but great.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So you mentioned like you've spoken to your family about it. Are they like super supportive? Are you able to be like totally honest with them as well?
They try to understand, but like my brother's really good. My brother is really, really understanding, and he's very much like mental health orientated and do what helps you and makes you feel good. My mum and dad are from the generation where mental health wasn't a thing, and my mum is getting a lot better with understanding it. My dad, on the other hand, like if I say I'm anxious or I'm stressed, he's like, what have you got to be stressed about? You're only 27, you're doing this and you're doing that. And I'm like, Dad, that doesn't help me at all. So they try, but yeah, it's more my boyfriend and like my brother that were the supportive ones.
I think it is difficult unless you've actually experienced it yourself. And even going back to your previous coaches, although it wasn't a good situation, I also feel like sometimes I can't blame people for not being very good at helping if they genuinely don't understand what you're going.
And they've had no training in it. Like if I'd have become a coach, I don't know, like 4 years ago, I had no idea what binge eating was or that I struggled with it. And I would never have picked up on someone saying that they had it or known what to have done with them. It's only through like my own experiences and obviously doing the course that I can now help people with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do an amazing job. And even just like hearing you have a ramble on your stories, like I love listening. I do feel like you've just got a voice that is so wonderful to listen to anyway, not throwing the comments.
I hate my voice.
No, I love it. And I just think, you know, your Instagram is such like a safe space full of support and just making people feel less alone as well. And I think that's all you should go out to try and do. So we're just coming in with the positivity.
And with realism, like showing that bloating happens, and that like I love your Instagram just because you make me feel less guilty if I don't go to the gym, because you're like, oh, I can just play on the Wii and do all these things. I'm like, that is what it's about. Like it's moving your body to feel good, not to just try and look a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think it does take you being sort of taken out your routine sometimes to actually figure out other things that you like doing, because I was like a hardcore gym bunny, like 6-7 days a week, and I frigging loved being there. Like there was so much joy in it for me. And it took lockdown to actually take that away from me, and having to figure out, oh, I do actually really like home workouts. I love being in my home. So now I find it hard to get out of the house.
But I think that's the thing, like lockdown was definitely something that caused a lot of people to realize that they were obsessed with going to the gym or obsessed with certain things, because when it's taken away from you and you realize how much that actually impacts your life, you start to reevaluate things quite a lot.
Absolutely. Just reevaluate what means the most to you, but also what actually makes you happy. Like,
Yeah.
I was very similar to you. Like, I didn't enjoy exercise when I was younger at all. I didn't enjoy dancing. And now I'm on Just Dance every week. It's not for anyone else. It's just for you, isn't
Oh,
it?
good. Yeah.
Absolutely. And obviously on this podcast, we talk a lot about fad diets because unfortunately we have collectively dabbled in a hell of a lot of them. With having the internet, there is just so many to pick from. So I'm just personally intrigued as to reflecting on maybe what's like the weirdest one that you've tried, or maybe like the most ridiculous one you sort of reflect back on and think, Bekka, what was I doing?
That's quite a good question. I don't think I've necessarily ever done them to extremes. Like, I know that my mum used to do Weight Watchers, and I used to, like, she had a dial that worked out the sin points or whatever in her food, and I used to steal it and be like, oh, what's my meal, sort of thing, without her knowing. I've cut carbs, which is just stupid. And like the whole intermittent fasting thing, I just felt sick all the time. Like, you intermittent fast automatically when you sleep. Like, there's no need to extend that window. Why do we feel we have to? Detoxes, I definitely fell for them, and all they are laxatives, and you spend your whole life on the toilet.
This is what we come with, the brutal honesty of it.
Yes.
Save your money and listen to our podcasts.
Exactly. Like, it's free.
Exactly. But mentioning podcasts, obviously you have last month started a brand new podcast. So I would love for you to just please share with our listeners what it's called, what can we expect tuning in, and what sort of pushed you to take the leap into the podcasting world.
So the podcast is called Food Freedom with Bekka, just because my brother's into social media and stuff, and he told me to keep it simple, so I did. Basically, so I work with another girl called Abby. She helps me with my business, and she's also had a very similar journey with binge eating and struggled a lot. And basically, obviously this year, with all of the different financial issues and stuff, people can't afford coaching. And as much as I would love to do coaching for free, I obviously still need to make money from it because it's a business, and it's the hardest fight I have with myself. And I'm sure you're very similar.
Yeah.
Like, people message me and I want to help them and they can't afford it, and there's only so many discounts and stuff I could give out. So we sat down one day and just brainstormed on ways we could help people without giving our time away too much, and came up with the podcast idea, just because when we were both going through it, being able to listen to someone that's been through it and understands it would just have made a whole load of difference to us. So we just started it with the intention of, even if it doesn't reach many people, as long as it reaches one person and helps them, then that makes us happy, which I guess is very similar to why you started your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It was that. And I think we collectively just had so much to say as well. Like, we love to ramble, we love to talk. And especially sort of for me personally, and probably like the other girls as well, we don't have many people in our lives that have struggled with their relationship with food like we have. So to sort of find each other and be like, oh my God, actually, a lot of our childhoods were the same. We've also had the same issues with food and exercise in our body. Just to find a couple of people to relate to and just be able to talk it out is enjoyable for us, as enjoyable as it is for other people to listen to. And I hope that it makes people feel less alone, feel more sane, but it's a hell of a lot of fun for us as well.
I think that is honestly like one of the best things that's come out of me having struggled with my food and done all of these things and becoming a coach, is the people that you make friends with that you would never have ever have met in your life. Like, obviously there's you, and like I said, Abby lives in Devon. She's quite a few years younger than me. I would never have known her without this stuff. And it's just nice that there is such a community of people that you don't have to live next door to people anymore to be able to be their friends. Like, you can be friends with people all over the world, and they can change your lives more than somebody that you've known since you were a kid.
100%. I love that so much. To sort of start finishing off, I would love for you to share your first sort of piece of advice for those who are feeling anxious around Christmas time, because obviously this podcast is going to go out just before Christmas. So there are going to be a lot of people stressing about food, stressing about their body, stressing about, I don't know, things like lack of routine and everything. Christmas is such a wonderful time of year, but also filled with anxiety for a lot of people. So I just want you to give sort of your top piece of advice to anyone feeling that way right now. If you could say one thing to them, what would it be?
So it would be that Christmas is very overwhelming. It is very daunting, and it is a different time of life because everyone's got the sod it, it's Christmas attitude. If people don't understand what you're going through, they're never going to understand at Christmas. But the thing that helped me the most has been just trying to keep to the little habits that I've built. So like this Christmas, I'm going to eat a lot of food. I know that, but I'm going to make sure I'm drinking lots of water. I'm going to make sure that, like, not on Christmas Day, but over the Christmas period, I'm going to go for some walks just to move my body. And even if my exercise has changed from the gym to chasing around after my nephew, like, I'm still moving my body, and that's okay. And at the end of the day, if you work out how many actual meals you're having over Christmas versus how many meals you have in a year, it is nothing. Like, the year you've worked hard on yourself is not going to be erased from like a couple of meals at Christmas.
100%. It's always about like stepping back at the bigger picture and not getting stressed out. And I think the more we overthink it and the more we get stressed out, the more we try not to overeat, actually, the more we end up with our head inside the hero's tub, isn't it?
Definitely.
But also with New Year quickly around the corner, of course, we are all about, you know, making small changes, positive habits, and also having the most sustainable January that we can. What is one piece of advice for people maybe setting their expectations sky high of all the positive things they're going to do, all of their positive habits they're going to adopt? What would you say to that person who has got a resolution list a mile long?
My thing with January is habits take a long time to form. Like, if you think of how long it's taken you to get a bad relationship with food, it's not going to go in a day. It's not going to go in a month. Like, it takes time. So again, I've spoken to my brother about this before, and he's very good in that he will take one thing that he wants to do. So say, for example, it's running when you're not someone that runs. He bought himself a treadmill and literally did a minute for the first week every day because it's realistic and it's achievable. Once he'd got that habit, he then increased it a little bit more. And some days he might do more than a minute, but as long as he did a minute, he didn't go on there and say, right, I'm going to run for an hour every day, because he's not run before. His body is not used to it. Like, it's just, as you said, taking a step back and simplifying it, because it takes time to build habits.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioning running, I actually personally wanted to start running. I was just driving one day and I just saw this woman running through the street, and I was like, that just looks so much fun and so empowering. But the thought of starting actually put me off completely. And I haven't started because I think in my head, I was like, right, we've got to aim for 5K straight away. So I just love that little piece of advice. It's all about literally just getting started, getting your foot out the door.
Yeah, it's what I said. My mum's the same. She wanted to run a bit more. And I was like, you've got a treadmill, just literally, she was like, but I can't run for 5 minutes. And I'm like, but you don't have to run for 5 minutes. Just run for 30 seconds and walk for a minute. Like, do it slowly. Just because people on Instagram are saying they've done a 10K or they've done this. So do what you can do.
Thank you so much. You're giving me words of wisdom, not just Alice.
I expect to see you running next year now.
Yeah, we've got the trainers, we've got the outfit. We just need to actually get my bum out there. With it being so cold outside, maybe I should have started in the summer, but then there's no point to keep putting things off either.
There's never a good time to start. Now is just as good.
Absolutely. Motivated me now. But thank you so much for coming on the Rewrite the Rules podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Can you please let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can find your podcast? And of course, like, I'll be linking it all in the show notes as well.
So I have a website, which is foodfreedomwithbekka.com. Bekka's spelled with K's, but you'll see that below. And then Instagram is at foodfreedomwithbekka.
I love that. And your podcast
is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all of those, and it is just Food Freedom with Bekka again.
I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your journey, not just with me, but with all of us. I've loved speaking to you, and I know that this episode is going to be so valuable to people in so many different ways, not just you sharing your story, but also the advice about Christmas, the advice about January and New Year's. I think it just really helps people take the pressure off. So from the three of us, even though there's only one of me right now, thank you so much for coming on. I have loved speaking to you.
You're welcome.
As always, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If there is ever a topic you want us to cover or guests that you want to see, feel free to drop us a message at Rewrite the Rules Pod on Instagram. But until next time, we will see you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.